So we've been looking at the acquisition reports, and we just took a look at how to navigate them using channels. But now let's go a step deeper and look at how to navigate all traffic reports using source medium. You're going to find your all traffic acquisition reports by selecting source medium from the selection here on the left in the all traffic dropdown in the acquisition category. I'm going to minimize the navigation bar so we can get a better view of what's going on the screen. Again, this report looks very similar to everything we've seen, so I'm just going to scroll down and talk about some key items. In this case, I'm now looking at all of our traffic based on the source and the medium. And this is again confirmed by the heading here at the top of the column and by reviewing which primary dimension is selected at the top of this report. The source and medium report is going to give us a little bit more of a granular view on where our traffic is coming from. Again, it's a way of understanding where people are coming from, and then you can apply secondary dimensions to understand when people come from that source or that particular medium, where they're headed or what they're doing. Again, the initial basics are here on the right. We can see our total sessions, the percent new, total new users, our bounce rate, pages per session, and even our average session duration. Now, earlier, we looked at using the bounce rate to identify problems, say with our landing pages or within our channel groupings. And we could apply that same logic at the source and medium level. But let's take another look at this. First off, I want to initially start by exploring the high-level sources that are driving most of my traffic. I can see it's Google, followed by Direct, then Yahoo, Bing, and so on and so forth. You might find some surprising information when you do this. In this case, this site has been heavily SEO optimized towards Google, but we're still getting a lot of Yahoo and Bing traffic organically. This might indicate that there's some opportunity to improve in those areas as well. Let's say that Yahoo has an SEO best practice. Well, I might want to roll that into my site and see if I can improve my overall sessions. If you want to navigate multiple pages or show more rows, you can interact at the bottom right of this chart. Let's tab over to the next page, and let's start to look at how things appear as the session numbers get lower. So here, the 11th most popular source is only driving about 0.04% of overall traffic. And this is a checkout page from firstdata.com, and that indicates to me that this is actually a referral from my own checkout back to my site. But then we start to get into some interesting areas, us.wow.com, rosevilleinfo.com, and so on and so forth. Now, if you start to see some patterns or trends with various sources, you might want to interact with them and see where that content's coming from. You can also click into a particular source. Let's choose us.wow.com. And now you can look at that source over time. So I see here on May 21st, it peaked much higher than it had historically. This could indicate that this particular publisher wrote an article about me. Maybe I put a link on their website. What I'm looking for is an understanding of why people are clicking from here and why traffic is changing over time. If I see that traffic continues to increase, I would like to know why. If I see it decreasing, that would be something that I could investigate more. Now, because it's a small driver of overall sessions, it might not be all that worth my time, but it's good just to familiarize yourself with how I'm thinking. I'm going to go back and let's take a look at some other elements of your source and medium reports. Again, just like before, you can bring in your secondary dimensions, and this allows you to navigate any of these options to see additional information. Maybe I'm interested in age of users by particular sources. I can select that, and you'll notice that it gets pretty complicated because for the most part, most of my age range are going to be associated with each source. But I brought this in to show you an interesting way of how bringing in an additional dimension works. You'll notice that Google's going to continue showing things sorted by whatever column you've selected. So right now, I'm sorting by sessions. Let's say I sort by new users. I'll select the top of the column to start my sorting. And you'll see that what's going to happen is it's going to bring in the source and medium that's most popular at that quantity of new users. And in this case, it's Google a bunch of times and in the order that the ages are most popular. So sometimes this can get a little complicated, and that's where adding in those filters helps. Maybe I'm only interested in understanding how my 25 to 34 age range is working with my sources. And in that case, I would add a filter by choosing Advanced, include age, and we could say containing, begins with, ends with. We'll say containing 25 to 34. And Google's going to give you a drop down there to help you make sure that that query is accurate. And then I'll choose Apply. Okay, so now we're only going to see one age range per source. And this helps us, again, identify where some of this traffic is coming from. So again, your idea is really to start interacting with bringing in dimensions and filters to dive deeper into those specific sources. At any time you can click into a source, let me go ahead and remove that filter by choosing the X next to it in the column above. So what we want to do now is we can use our primary dimension filters at the top of the screen to simply select source if we're no longer interested in seeing the medium associated, or we can simply sort by medium by selecting again from that primary dimension at the top of the screen. And you'll notice we only have 3 mediums associated, and as we discussed before, none typically is referring to direct traffic. Use your source and medium reports to get a touch deeper into what's going on with your overall channels. So once you identify how a channel's performing, you want to step in and start looking at where within that channel traffic is originating from. Then you can take that learning to understand if you're seeing significant improvement in particular sources. Let's say you run a campaign with a corresponding business, something that you wanted to do collaboratively. You could see if that business's website was driving traffic to your site and when you saw peaks and valleys in your data as it associates to that specific source. So if you're looking for information on the origin, you would come in to your source and medium reports. And another thing I'd like to point out is you can always use the search to look for a particular source that you might be interested in. If you have a lot of traffic, it could be hard with thousands of pages to go through page by page by page to see how a particular source benefited you. But if you know the name of the source, let's say it was AOL.com, you could simply search for it and you could see what arrives. In this case, I'm getting mail.aol.com, and I know that there's another source in there, so it might be too specific. So I can remove the .com, and there we go. Now I can see the source as AOL. So that would allow me to begin filtering in. And as you saw, sometimes when you run searches, you need to kind of think creatively if you're not finding the data that you know is there. So adding AOL.com didn't quite work for me. So I went back and removed the .com, and we saw what happened there. So again, take some time to explore your source and medium reports to get that granular perspective as to exactly what's happening.